fired from my job, but received a year's worth of pay and got my boss fired. In the early 2010s, when YouTube was still a scrappy platform finding its footing and video editing software demanded as much patience as skill, I landed a job that felt like a golden ticket for a young content creator. The gig was with a mid-sized university in the Midwest, eager to jump on the digital bandwagon and boost its brand with a YouTube channel. They offered me $2,200 a month. Modest even then, but I was thrilled. Back then, content creator was a rare title, and the chance to build something from scratch was intoxicating. Little did I know I was stepping into a pressure cooker of impossible expectations, personal biases, and a plot twist that would redefine my path. The spark of opportunity. The university's campus was a postcard of Americana, red brick buildings draped in ivy, sprawling quads where students tossed frisbees, and a library with stained glass windows that glowed at dusk. My first day was a blur of orientation packets and enthusiastic handshakes from the marketing team, who buzzed about going viral like it was a sure thing. My manager, Karen, was a polished woman in her late 40s, with a wardrobe of blazers and a smile that seemed rehearsed. She handed me a coffee mug emblazoned with the university's crest and welcomed me aboard, promising to back my creative vision. On day 2, reality hit. Karen ushered me into her office, a sterile space cluttered with motivational posters, "Teamwork makes the dream work," and a wilting fern that looked as tired as I'd soon feel. She slid a document across her desk, outlining my key performance indicator: produce 85 videos, each 3 to 10 minutes long in 52 weeks. I blinked, my mind racing. That was roughly 1.6 videos a week, scripted, cast, shot, edited and scored by me alone. In 2011, when rendering a single 720p clip could take hours, this was absurd. "Karen, this seems ambitious," I said, choosing my words carefully. "I'd be handling everything: writing, filming, editing, even composing music. And the equipment here isn't exactly cutting edge." She leaned back, her smile unwavering, almost patronizing. "Just give it a try, Jake. If the videos are good, we won't fixate on the numbers. Quality over quantity, right?" Her tone was encouraging, but something in her eyes felt hollow. Still, I nodded, ignoring the unease curling in my gut. I'd make it work. I had to prove myself. The relentless grind. The university's equipment was a time capsule from the early 2000s. Clunky camcorders that struggled with 480p, desktop PCs that wheezed under basic editing software, and microphones that amplified every creak in the room. I brought my own gear: a Canon T2i I'd saved up for, a cracked copy of Adobe Premiere, and a cheap MIDI keyboard for music. The budget was so tight they wouldn't pay for royalty-free tracks, so I spent nights hunched over my laptop, layering synths and piano to craft upbeat scores that matched the university's inspirational vibe. My days became marathons. I'd wake at dawn, scribbling scripts over instant coffee, then crisscross campus to scout locations: the lecture hall with its chalk-dusted charm, the fountain that sparkled at golden hour, the cafeteria where students debated philosophy over soggy fries. Casting was its own hustle. I'd bribe undergrads with pizza to play enthusiastic student or dedicated professor for an hour. Filming meant juggling roles: director, cinematographer, sound tech, all while praying my battery wouldn't die mid-take. Editing was the real beast: hours tweaking cuts, syncing audio, and coaxing my laptop through renders that crashed half the time. Despite the chaos, the videos worked. My first batch: profiles of quirky faculty, tours of student clubs, a montage of homecoming shenanigans, racked up thousands of views, a big deal for a university channel in 2011. Comments flooded in: "This makes me want to apply." Finally, a school with personality. Karen even clapped me on the back once, her voice bright. "You're killing it, Jake." For a fleeting month, I felt like I was building something lasting. The smoke that shifted everything. Then came the cigarette incident. I'd always been a casual smoker, sneaking a quick break in the parking lot to clear my head. One muggy afternoon, Karen caught me stubbing out a butt near my beat-up Honda. Her face tightened, her lips pursing like she'd smelled something foul. She didn't say a word, just walked away. I shrugged it off, until the next day. Overnight, her warmth evaporated. She started hovering, sniffing the air when I returned from breaks. "Jake, you reek of smoke," she'd say loudly, ensuring the open-plan office heard. I'd mumble an apology, but her critique snowballed. I was 10 minutes late one morning after editing until 3 a.m. She'd fire off an email about professionalism. I missed a call during lunch? Unresponsive. It was like she'd declared war and I was enemy number one. I vented to Sarah, a graphic designer with a sharp wit, over vending machine coffee. When I mentioned Karen's reaction to my smoking, Sarah did an exaggerated facepalm, nearly spilling her latte. "Jake, you're toast," she said, half laughing. "Karen's got a crusade against smokers. She's been pushing for a campus-wide ban forever. Last year, she got a custodian fired for lighting up behind the gym." "You're kidding?" I said, my stomach sinking. "Nope. She's probably got a dartboard with your face on it now." I doubled down on work, determined to rise above her pettiness. I was logging 60-hour weeks, often staying late in the editing suite, a closet-sized room with flickering fluorescence and a fan that rattled like a dying engine. My videos were still pulling record views, some hitting tens of thousands, with local news even mentioning the channel's fresh approach. But Karen's attacks grew relentless. She'd nitpick my scripts for being too flashy, my shots for being too cinematic. Once, she claimed my backpack smelled of cigarettes, even though it had been in my trunk all week. Still, I gritted my teeth and pushed on, fueled by stubborn pride. I wanted those videos to be undeniable, no matter what she thought of me. A colleague's warning. Sarah became my lifeline, slipping me warnings about Karen's latest schemes. One day, as we grabbed lunch at a food truck near campus, she lowered her voice. "Karen's been talking to HR about you. She's building a case, tardiness, attitude, the works. You need to watch yourself." I stared at my taco, appetite gone. "I'm killing myself for this job, Sarah. What does she want?" "She wants you gone," Sarah said bluntly. "You're making her look good with those videos, but she can't stand you. It's personal now." I spent that night staring at my ceiling, the glow of streetlights seeping through my blinds. I'd moved to this town for this job, renting a cramped apartment with creaky floors and a leaky faucet. Quitting wasn't an option. I needed the money, and more than that, I needed to prove I could do this. But Karen's vendetta was a storm cloud I couldn't outrun. The director's verdict. 5 months in, I got an email summoning me to the director's office. Dr. Margaret Ellis was a formidable woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled into a tight bun and a reputation for cutting through nonsense. I walked into her office, a mahogany-paneled space lined with diplomas, and saw Karen sitting there, her lips curled in a smug, almost gleeful smirk. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on a staircase. "Jake, I'm disappointed," Dr. Ellis began, her voice measured. "Karen informs me you're falling behind. We're halfway through the year, and you've only delivered 30 of your 85 videos." I took a deep breath, fighting to stay calm. "Dr. Ellis, I've been working 6 days a week, over 60 hours, doing every single part of these videos myself. Writing, shooting, editing, composing music. The equipment here can't handle 720p, so I'm using my own gear. Those 30 videos? They've got the highest views your channel's ever seen. Some are pushing 50,000. Karen told me quality was the priority, not just hitting a number." Karen snorted, barely hiding her disdain. Dr. Ellis glanced at her, a flicker of irritation crossing her face, but she pressed on. "The KPI is clear," she said. 85 videos in a year. You're not even close. I think it's best we part ways now." I opened my mouth to argue, but Karen jumped in, her voice dripping with condescension. "Don't worry, Dr. Ellis. We'll hire a professional production house to finish his work." Dr. Ellis gave her an odd look, part skepticism, part acquiescence, then nodded. "You don't need to worry, Jake. Karen will handle it." That's when a spark ignited in my mind, sharp and defiant. They thought they could discard me and still hit their precious KPI? Fine. I'd make sure they'd choke on their own ambition. The database gambit. As the resident content expert, I'd built a database of production houses for bigger projects. Names, emails, phone numbers, all meticulously organized in a shared drive. Karen, who'd never so much as touched a camera, had no contacts in the industry. She'd lean on my list, I was certain. So that night, in my dingy apartment with its peeling wallpaper and a flickering bulb, I poured a glass of cheap whiskey and logged in. With a few clicks, I scrambled the database. Wrong numbers, mangled emails, fake addresses for every entry except one. Horizon Media, a scrappy outfit where my buddy Matt worked as a junior director. Matt was talented but stuck, always pitching ideas his bosses shelved. I called him at midnight, my plan crystallizing. "Matt, hear me out," I said, pacing my living room, the floorboards creaking underfoot. "I got canned today, but I'm handing you a jackpot. The university's about to hire a production house to finish my project. 50 videos, 6 months. I can guarantee they'll call Horizon if you nail this." "What's in it for you?" Matt asked, his voice wary but intrigued. "I'll coach you on the pitch. Every buzzword, every detail they love. You'll look like you've been studying their brand forever. In return, Horizon pays me a 15% finder's fee. Standard rate. You get a fat contract, maybe a promotion. I get a cut to fund my next move. Matt laughed, a mix of disbelief and excitement. You sneaky bastard. I'm in. I spent hours on the phone with him and his general manager, breaking down the university's quirks. Their love for inspirational narratives, their obsession with shots of the campus fountain at sunset, Dr. Ellis's soft spot for student testimonials. I even threw in Karen's pet peeves, like her hatred of overly dramatic music, so Matt could avoid her traps. By the time Horizon got the call 2 days later, Matt was armed with a pitch so tailored it was like he'd been on payroll for years. The perfect pitch. Horizon's meeting with Karen and Dr. Ellis was a masterclass. Matt, in a borrowed suit that was slightly too big, walked them through a presentation I'd helped craft. Slides bursting with buzzwords like engagement, authenticity, and brand synergy. He showed mock-ups mirroring my style. Upbeat piano tracks, slow-motion shots of laughing students, close-ups of the university's crest glinting in sunlight. He tossed in anecdotes about capturing the student experience, knowing Dr. Ellis ate that stuff up. Karen, desperate to prove she could deliver without me, nodded like a bobblehead. Dr. Ellis, usually stone-faced, leaned forward, impressed. They signed us on the spot, Matt told me later, still chuckling. Karen kept saying, "This is exactly what we need." I almost felt bad. Almost. Horizon wasn't cheap. A single video cost double my monthly salary with a full crew, producer, director, DP, gaffer, sound tech, editors, PAs. But they were a machine cranking out a video every 2 or 3 days. By month 4 they delivered 50 polished pieces, each one hitting the university's sweet spot. The channel's views soared past 100,000 on some clips, and Karen strutted around campus like she'd invented the internet. I meanwhile cashed my 15% finder's fee, a sum equal to 15 months of my old salary. I stashed half for a trip to Bali, picturing myself sipping cocktails on a beach, Karen's smirk a distant memory. The rest went to a dream I'd buried under years of hustle, a spot at a prestigious film school in London, where I could sharpen my craft without worrying about rent. The Bali bombshell. I thought that was the end, a clean revenge, a fresh start. But 3 months later, while I was lounging by an infinity pool in Bali, the ocean glittering under a pink sunset, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah, her voice crackling with excitement. "Jake, you're not gonna believe this," she said. "Karen got fired. Like run out of town fired." I sat up, nearly knocking over my pina colada. "What? How?" Sarah laid it out. The content project had a budget of roughly 1.5 years of my salary, a modest sum for a university meant to cover my work and maybe a few freelancers. Karen, in her frenzy to hit the KPI and erase me, had greenlit Horizon's invoices without a second thought. The total? Over 10 times the budget, a 6-figure hit that sent the chancellor into a rage. Dr. Ellis got a public tongue-lashing from the board, but Karen was the scapegoat. She'd approved every dollar without clearance, betting it'd make her untouchable. Instead it sank her. "They're auditing the whole department," Sarah said, laughing. "Karen's telling anyone who'll listen she was set up, but she's radioactive now. No one's touching her." I leaned back, the warm breeze carrying the scent of salt and frangipani. I hadn't planned for Karen's downfall, just a fair payout for me and a boost for Matt. But her own hubris had been her undoing. She'd wanted to bury me to prove she didn't need me. Instead, she'd handed me the shovel and dug her own grave. A new dawn. Matt's career took off just as I'd hoped. Horizon promoted him to full director, giving him bigger budgets and a corner office with a view. He sent me a case of Pinot Noir as a thank you, scribbling a note, "To the guy who flipped my life around. Beers on me next time." My windfall changed everything. Film school was a crucible, late nights cutting shorts in chilly editing bays, arguments about Scorsese over warm pints, mentors who pushed me to dig deeper. I graduated with a reel that landed me a gig directing commercials, then a low-budget indie film that snagged a jury prize at a festival. I wasn't swimming in cash, but I was free to create, to tell stories, to never bow to a Karen again. Looking back, I don't hate Karen. She was a product of her own insecurities, a middle manager swinging her tiny sword. But I learned something from her. Your work is your power. Those 30 videos I poured my soul into? They were the spark for everything that followed. And when life hands you a bad boss, sometimes the best move is to step back and let them trip over their own ego. Beyond the frame. The university's YouTube channel kept growing, ironically building on the foundation I'd laid. A year after I left, they hired a full-time team, 3 editors, 2 shooters, a social media guru, finally realizing one guy couldn't do it all. I check the channel sometimes, sipping coffee in my London flat, and smile at the familiar shots. The fountain, the quad, the library's glow. My fingerprints were still there even if my name wasn't. Sarah stayed in touch, updating me on the campus gossip. Dr. Ellis retired early, stung by the budget scandal but cushioned by a pension. The chancellor, a gruff academic with a soft spot for publicity, doubled down on digital marketing, turning the university into a minor online star. Karen, last I heard, bounced to a community college, managing their newsletter with a fraction of her old swagger. I didn't wish her ill, she'd already paid her price. In Bali, before I flew to London, I took a solo hike to a clifftop temple, the air thick with incense and the hum of distant prayers. Standing there watching the waves crash below, I thought about the kid I'd been, scraping by, doubting myself, chaining myself to a job that didn't see me. That kid was gone. In his place was someone who'd learned to play the game, not just survive it. Matt and I met up years later when he was in London for a shoot. Over beers in a noisy pub, we laughed about the old days, Karen's fern, the database trick, the pitch that changed his life. "You're a bloody legend, Jake," he said, clinking my glass. I shrugged, but inside I felt a quiet pride. I hadn't just gotten even, I'd built something better. Now, when I'm on set, shouting action, under blazing lights, I carry that lesson with me. No one hands you your worth, you claim it frame by frame. The end.